before the mighty Ottoman Empire ruled over 3 continents, before sultans walked in golden palaces and domes touched the heavens. There was just one man, a tribal leader with no throne, no riches, and no army. His name was Osman, and from the ashes of fallen empires, he forged a new vision. This is not just the story of a warrior. This is the story of a founder, a builder of systems, of faith, of legacy. This is the tale of how Osman Ghazi carved an empire from chaos. You are watching the Pendulum of Truth. If you like the content, please subscribe the channel and like the video. The 13th century. The Islamic world was shattered. The once mighty Seljuks were crumbling under Mongol pressure. The Byzantines, once lords of Constantinople, were a flickering flame, besieged by internal chaos. Anatolia was a chessboard of fractured powers, Armenian kingdoms, Greek warlords, runaway governors, and Turkic tribes. It was not a land of peace, it was a battlefield, and into this chaos came the Kayi tribe, a displaced clan of Oghuz Turks led by Ertugrul Bey, a man of principle, of faith, and the father of Osman. Ertugrul Bey had won favor with the Seljuk Sultan and carved a fragile peace in the frontier town of Sogut, a town between worlds, between Christian Byzantium and Muslim Anatolia. He taught his people justice, loyalty, and survival. Osman, his youngest son, absorbed these values like fire absorbs wind. He learned to ride before he could write, to fight before he could speak in courtly tones. He grew up watching border raids, diplomatic treachery, and tribal politics. This world molded him, hardened him, and prepared him to lead. Osman Bey's early years were filled with tests of character. He fought in his father's campaigns, settled tribal disputes, and proved his worth to the elders. But it wasn't just his strength that set him apart. It was a dream. Legend says Osman dreamed of a tree growing from his chest, its branches shading the world. Scholars believe this dream, Osman's dream, was interpreted by a sheikh named Edebali, whose daughter Osman would later marry. From that union of prophecy and faith, a purpose was born: to create a just Islamic state, not just for Turks, but for all who sought fairness. Osman's first battles were not grand wars, they were gritty skirmishes. He led ambushes, sieges, and raids against Byzantine outposts. Kulucahisar was his first major conquest, a symbol of Ottoman resilience. He installed judges and imams, not just garrisons. This was not just war, it was state building. From there, he captured Yenishehir, Bilecik, and Lefka. Each town, each fort, expanded Ottoman territory, and Osman's legend. But the most chilling of Osman's campaigns came at the Battle of Domlet. A cold morning. Fog hung over the valley like a veil of death. Osman's scouts vanished the night before. Locals whispered of ghosts. Byzantine soldiers who never left their post, still guarding their crumbling fort. That morning, Osman led 300 men into the mist. They met an ambush, fire arrows, shrieking chants, warriors in blackened armor. What followed was a bloodbath. Horses screamed. Men were pulled from saddles and hacked apart in the mud. Osman fought like a demon, his sword never stopping. He lost a third of his warriors, but the enemy was vanquished. The fields of Domlet ran red, and Osman left a warning. I do not conquer with cruelty, but I answer it with thunder. Kulucahisar was a fortress that guarded the mountain pass. It was said to be impregnable, its walls carved from the very rock. But Osman was no ordinary commander. He attacked under the cover of nightfall, using hidden mountain paths. His men climbed sheer cliffs with torches extinguished. The sentries were killed silently. At dawn, the gates were opened from the inside, but the horror came after. Inside the fortress were prisoners, Turks, Christians, even women and children, tortured and starved. Osman's men wept at what they saw, and they swore vengeance. No quarter was given. Every enemy fighter inside Kulucahisar was slain. It wasn't a siege. It was an exorcism. From that day, the world knew the Ottomans were not just warriors. They were justice wrapped in steel. Not all Turks supported Osman. Some tribal beys saw him as a threat. One close ally, his own Uncle Dündar, betrayed him. Osman executed him, not out of cruelty, but necessity. The state had to survive. Osman's leadership was tested again and again. But those who remained loyal, like Turgut Alp, Konur Alp, and Akçakoka, became legends in their own right. Their loyalty laid the foundation of Ottoman nobility. At this time, Osman implemented a code of gazis. Osman established a moral and military code. He declared a protection for non-Muslims who paid taxes. He forbade looting without cause. He believed in discipline, and his warriors, the gazis, were not mere raiders. They were symbols of divine justice. This code would become the heartbeat of early Ottoman governance. Now, let's talk about the role of women during Osman's time. Osman's wife, Malhun Hatun, was not just a spouse. She was a political ally, a tribal diplomat. Women in the early Ottoman state held influence, both in court and camp. They educated children, resolved disputes, and even led caravans. The Ottoman rise was not just built on swords, but on families. Osman wasn't just a warrior. He was laying the groundwork for an organized state. As his influence expanded, he began drafting laws, creating early tax systems to manage resources efficiently, and appointing judges known as qadis, along with scholars to serve as administrators. This marked a shift from tribal rule to a more structured, centralized government. He also understood the power of alliances, forging military partnerships with neighboring tribes. Some converted to Islam, embracing the unity he promoted, while others simply saw stability in his vision and chose to stand with him. His leadership wasn't just about conquests. It was about building a system that would endure, transforming his growing realm into the foundation of what would become the powerful Ottoman Empire. As Osman grew older, his son Orhan started to take charge, having been trained in both combat and diplomacy. Together, they pushed the Ottoman expansion forward, strengthening their rule. In 1326, they achieved a major victory when Bursa, the city Osman had long dreamed of conquering, finally fell. But Osman never got to see it himself. He passed away shortly after. Still, he had witnessed enough to know that his vision was coming to life. The foundations were set, and the dynasty he had built was now firmly in motion. What Osman created during his lifetime would grow far beyond anything he could have imagined. His vision didn't end with him. It carried on through his son Orhan, then Murad, then Bayezid, as the Ottomans transformed into a formidable empire stretching from the Balkans to Baghdad. But Osman was never forgotten. Every sultan who followed bore his name, and every conquest was carried out in the spirit of his dream beneath the tree. His tomb in Bursa became a place of pilgrimage, a symbol of the empire's origins, and his code of law, the Canon, remained a guiding force, shaping the justice and governance of the dynasty he had set into motion. Was Osman a saint, a warrior, or a king? The truth is somewhere in between. Most of what we know about him comes from stories passed down over generations and written down years after his death. Over time, facts and legends have blended together, but one thing remains clear. He was fair, he was wise, and he believed in something bigger than himself. Osman Ghazi started with nothing. No royal palace, no official title, no wealth. But what he did have was a dream. One that would grow into an empire lasting 600 years. Under the Ottomans, people of different faiths, Muslims, Christians, Jews, and others, lived under their rule. They fought against crusaders, held their ground against the Mongols, and shaped the world's trade networks. Yet, no matter how vast the empire became, everything traced back to one man. A tribal leader with a vision, a warrior with determination. This was the rise of Osman Ghazi. If his story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And always remember, history isn't just a collection of names and dates. It's the dreams that never fade.